I'll go ahead and introduce myself, and then I will introduce Flavio a little bit, and he will talk about his company. Then he'll go through a run through, give an overview of BTC Jam. I've got some prepared questions, and then we will open it up to audience questions so we can get all of your questions answered. I hope everyone can see my screen, so you guys will actually be able to see the interface. And I've done one loan that's been completed, and I've got two that are in progress. So we'll get to see how the platform works.
Great.
So for me, I'm the owner of Bitcoin Bulls. It's a community for people who believe in Bitcoin's power to change the world and who are invested in that future. I first heard about Bitcoin in 2011, and I made my first Bitcoin investment in July of 2013, and I've just become a bigger and bigger believer. As I've looked into it and explored Bitcoin, all my questions have been answered. And the reason that I'm interested in BTC Jam is because last year I had a very successful investment year with my Bitcoins, and key to that success was investing in products that paid dividends or provided a return on the investment. Since I'm long Bitcoin anyways, and I'm attracted to BTC Jam because since I'm holding Bitcoins, then I can get a return on those Bitcoins. And Flavio is the chief marketing officer with BTC Jam, and he's offered to come on this webinar to talk about the platform and answer our questions. So with that, I will turn it over to Flavio.
All right, David, thanks a lot for doing this. This is the very first time that we're doing something like this, so I'm excited and also curious to see how it's going to go and be. Yeah, I'm going to give a little rundown as David announced, and then I would love to engage a little bit, definitely with questions. The audience also very interesting for me to learn what kind of concerns and questions people have before they launch. So this should be fun. And yeah, please. I'm not seeing the questions right now, but I'm assuming you are seeing them and you can share them as people go along. We can just take them in. I don't know if you want to do that at the end but either way. So I'll give a little bit of a background maybe for why BTC Jam, why now, and then why is it great for people who have some capital they'd like to invest. The company was started by Celso Pitta, who's a Brazilian software engineer, and it was himself when he was in college, he got into debt to finance his studies, and then in Brazil the interest rates are incredibly high. If you have to go into debt, you can easily be paying 10% per month interest, right? So we're talking 120, sometimes up to 200% APR, and so it was very hard for people like him, and even him is like a pretty well educated person. These people can still not get access to cheap credit, and then he started researching that and said there's got to be a better way, and that's how he kind of started thinking about alternative ways to do lending, and he came across this idea of doing peer-to-peer lending, but then also found out that doing that in Brazil within the current regulatory framework would require him to have like $40 million in the bank before he could even get started. So he started researching more, and then he found Bitcoin, and it was like, wow, Bitcoin's cool. First of all, the Brazilian central bank said that they don't want to regulate it, so it kind of opens up that area for innovation, and then at the same time, it's also something that's completely global, right? So came from that, came into the idea of doing something on a global scale. And he also has a background in the financial space. So he worked at Citibank for a while, and he was kind of in charge of doing a lot of the fraud detection on credit card processing. So he has a strong background in machine learning and all that. And he also saw how credit scoring was being done. And for example, it's hard for us to understand in the U.S., but most other countries around the world don't have a credit scoring system, like a score that you can just go and look up online. They sometimes either don't have anything, and the banks just kind of do that by themselves, or what they have is like a negative score system. What that means is if you've ever defaulted, there's a blacklist, and you'll be on the blacklist, but there's no way for you to kind of build up credit over time. So he kind of, given his background in machine learning, and then he said, okay, well, maybe there's a better way to do credit scoring. And then, as Facebook and LinkedIn and PayPal and eBay and all these other platforms come along where people have digital footprints, he saw an opportunity to kind of take what he had learned about how to do predictive analysis and credit scoring within a bank, using that new data, that digital footprint that we all have, to do credit scoring in a country that doesn't have a traditional FICO credit scoring system. And so taking Bitcoin and then this idea of doing credit scoring on an international scale by using new types of data to do the underwriting assessment, that's how kind of BTCGM was born. So he first started building on this like late 2012. Then kind of at the beginning he allowed anonymous loans. Okay, so it's pretty crazy to think back that now. And he was a miner back in the day, so he got into Bitcoin when Bitcoin was around $1. And then but then he used a lot. So he had thousands of Bitcoins, but he mostly used them to finance the platform and try out. The beginning he was funding most of the loans, and then he was able to really build on that credit scoring system and improve it a lot. The repayment rate when he started out, even with anonymous loans, was 50%, which we can say is almost already amazingly high for anonymous loans.
Yeah.
But then he started improving a lot. He started looking at the data, kind of how people. And so we take in a lot of. So today, BTCGM is the world's first and largest kind of Bitcoin peer-to-peer lending company. We're doing about $1 million worth of loans a month. And the repayment rates have improved dramatically. We're now around 85, sometimes 90% repayment rate across all credit scores, and that's thanks to the fact that Celso has been, we're constantly looking at how users are behaving, what kind of documents they're submitting. We have when borrowers connect their Facebook accounts, we get a lot of information about that, right? Like how many friends they have, who their friends are, what kind of things they've liked in the past, photos they're tagged in, like many data about that, right? And then they connect LinkedIn and PayPal, and suddenly you start kind of painting a picture of a person, and then over time you can do a correlation and data analysis. You can say, many factors won't be predictive, but there's got to be a few factors that are going to be very predictive of the likelihood of someone to repay a loan or not, right? And that's kind of our core IP of BTCGM is how to basically, to find those triggers and having those machine learning algorithms running in the background that are going to predict, and they're going to say, okay, you're an A, you're a B, you're a C, whatever credit score you have, and that's also going to determine the interest rate that we recommend that the borrower takes. So at the end, for you as an investor, shouldn't really matter, what the credit score is, as long as the interest rate kind of offsets the risk, right? So an A borrower, you can be profitable if he pays maybe 10, 12% APR per year, but maybe a C borrower you want more like 30 or 40% APR because the default probability is much higher, right? And then so that's the platform kind of in a basic nutshell today. If people are at home, they can navigate through the site. We just launched a redesign to make the site a lot more social. So we now have a news feed so you can kind of follow what other people are investing in. There's a leaderboard. You can see the people that are investing well. So feel free to go and click around, browse around, and the other thing I should mention is kind of give the background of why this is such a powerful idea. Is BTCGM, because it's a global platform now, we can connect people that are in third world countries. So we're talking Brazil, India, Philippines, many other countries around the world where credit is very scarce, very hard to access, and if they can't access it, people pay these kind of usurious 100, 200% APR rates. So we connect those people that have a strong need for credit, with people that have capital, that are always looking for better ways to invest. And if you have your money in your savings account, you can make 0.1%. If you have your money somewhere, maybe in a mutual fund, in an index fund, you can maybe make 7-8% a year. If you're really good at managing your stock, 10%, 12%. But BTC is opening up a new asset class that has not really been available before, right? Which is loans given directly to people. And the beauty of Bitcoin is that it allows us to send money to all those countries with incredibly low fees, right? So we can send money to someone in Indonesia. In Indonesia, $200-300 is a lot of money. They can start a business, or they can expand a business with that money, or they can pay off a loan that they're paying crazy rates on, and then repay a lower rate with BTC Jam. So the power of BTC Jam lies in that connection that happens between, or it's capital arbitrage, if you will, in a way, capital that's available in the rich developed world, investing that where it's most needed through the beauty of Bitcoin and through the credit scoring algorithm that we've developed. So that's kind of the thesis that we have behind, and yeah, it seems to be working so far. We have people doing pretty good returns. I just quickly saw David's return before. They look positive, so that makes me.
Yeah, I've got the leaderboard up right now, which has some pretty amazing returns, and then my returns on the Bitcoin 45.68% and 7.48 on the Bitstamp USD.
Perfect. That's great to hear. Hopefully those returns will stay positive as you go on. But looks like everyone so far has been paying you back, so that's great. I don't know. I kind of gave the nutshell. Should we go into more conversation? Should I just keep on talking a little bit more, or?
Yeah, I think let's summarize. It seems like the key points. You're doing $1 million in loans per month right now, and there's a 85% repayment rate, I think you said.
Yes.
And I'm sure we'll get into it later, but it's key to note that different loans have different risk rates.
Yes.
And so people should pay attention to that to adjust the APR that they're expecting accordingly.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's this new asset class.
Yes. So yeah, maybe just one thing that is really important if people are thinking about going to BTC Jam and playing around with this. I want to mention two more things that are important for us here. One is that there's two types of loans that we offer at the moment, and that's also why you saw two returns in your dashboard. Is that one type of loan is a Bitcoin loan. So what I mean by that is that the loan is denominated in Bitcoin. There's a fixed amount of Bitcoin that the borrower is taking out, and there's an amount of Bitcoin that he will have to pay back over time, right? So this is good if you're an investor and you want to be long Bitcoin. You can invest in those loans, and the repayment is going to be fixed in Bitcoin. And so the challenge or the interesting part with that is that those loans only make sense from a borrower's perspective if your income is actually also in Bitcoin. Right? Because if you take a loan in Bitcoin, let's say, I don't know, 10 Bitcoin, right? By today's price, that's what is that, about $5,000, right? Mm-hmm. And then suddenly over, let's say you take a loan that's a 6-month term, and then over that time period, the Bitcoin price doubles, which we all hope it will do, right? So suddenly now you owe $10,000. That may be more than you can afford if you converted those Bitcoin when you got them. If you converted them to dollars, and bought a car with it or whatever you did with it, and we're expecting to pay this back with your dollar income, this may be very tough for you. And on the other hand, if you're a miner that has income in Bitcoin, or you have some kind of other business activity, I don't know, local Bitcoins or something, where you are making income in Bitcoin, then those loans actually may make more sense, because you don't know what the dollar versus Bitcoin is going to do. If I'm going to get 10 Bitcoins over the next 6 months, whatever the price in dollar is, then it makes more sense to get a Bitcoin loan. But in all the other instances, what we encourage borrowers to do is to take out the loan, and that's the second type of loan that we have, which is a which we call Bitstamp USD, which basically means that the loan is essentially denominated in US dollars, and the amount of Bitcoin that the borrower gets when he gets the loan or has to pay back when he pays back is in fact fluctuates over time. So if the Bitcoin price increases a lot, in the other example, let's say I wanted to buy a car and I needed $5,000, right? I can go BTCGM and say, okay, BTCGM is going to tell me, okay, it's going to be 10 Bitcoin, right? And I'll get the 10 Bitcoin, but then if in 6 months the Bitcoin price doubled, I won't owe 10 Bitcoin, but I'll owe only 5 Bitcoin, right? Because if Bitcoin is $1,000, 5 times $1,000 is $5,000 plus some interest, obviously. So that's a great way for me as a borrower to kind of hedge my exposure to Bitcoin volatility. And at the same time, for me as an investor, can be interesting. Let's say I have a little bit of Bitcoin that I'm thinking of selling because I'm thinking the price could go down more. An alternative to selling that Bitcoin on the market may just be to invest on BTCGM in some of these dollar-linked loans. They, kind of financially are the equivalent of getting out of Bitcoin at this price, but you're not incurring the transaction fee of selling. You're basically going short for the period time of the loan that you're investing in. Right? And then you'll get more in that example. You'll get more if the price actually does go down. You'll get more Bitcoin back as the borrower needs to pay more Bitcoin to pay the same dollar amount. So it could be a way almost to buy cheap Bitcoin on the cheap. At the same time, of course, if the Bitcoin price did go up even after I invested in a dollar loan, I'll receive I'll receive less Bitcoin back. But in dollar terms, I'll still be doing a positive return, right? So that's something that to bear in mind. And every listing on the platform has either it's clearly marked. If you can see on David's screen, there's some of these loans have Bitstamp USD right under the rate. Yeah, that's right. So you want to be, and there's also a filtering possibility on the left. You can say I only want to see the dollar loans. We're going to add the other one. They can see the Bitcoin loans too. But anyway, so that allows you to filter and say, okay, I only want to be investing in. And so what's interesting here as an investor is if you're investing exclusively in Bitstamp loans, you're actually not being long Bitcoin at this stage. It can be interesting if you're thinking the market's overheated now a little bit, or I just don't want to be in Bitcoin per se. I just want to help other people and I want to make a great return in dollar terms. Then BTCGM can enable that too. So that's very important for me to mention. And then the second thing to mention is that that it's very important to diversify, right? Like there's always going to be defaults. I want to make that very clear. There's going to be people who don't pay back. And the strategy here really is to try to not put all your eggs in one or two baskets, but rather try to diversify as much as possible, and so that an individual failure will not impact your returns too much, right? And it's definitely possible to have great returns even with the occasional default, as long as you diversify well, watch the credit scores you're investing in, watch the expected APR, which is the second column here on David's screen. The expected APR kind of tells you. So this is the real APR discounted by the probability of loss, right? If the person pays back, you'll get more than that number. Of course, if they don't pay back, the return is negative, right? But this is the expected value based on loans that are similar to the loan that you're currently seeing, based on how loans that are similar to this loan have performed on the platform in the past. And here's the detailed view, where you can see those numbers more in detail. You can see a little bit more information about the person who's getting the loan, what they've verified with us. So identity, we collect. This is the person sends in a piece of identity, either a passport or a driver's license. Then income is, we take a look at their pay stub. PayPal is kind of obvious, and we feel that's a very strong. If a person has a verified PayPal account, it's actually not that easy for a person who tried to scam the system to get a verified PayPal account. with a Facebook account that matches the same name and the same pictures and so on. So we've gotten pretty good at kind of weeding out the scammers. We definitely had scammers in the past, but I feel like it's getting harder every day for those people to kind of game the system. And yeah, so that's how you can see here and just connecting more things doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be an A plus, right? But on average, the likelihood is going to be higher that you get a higher score if you give us more data. But of course, if you give us a lot of data that indicates that you're a felon or something, then that's going to work against you, right? So yeah, so just to recap, kind of. People want to watch whether they're investing in dollar loans or in Bitcoin loans, and it may be fun to just diversify a little bit in both, so you're kind of hedged against both scenarios. And then the second thing is very important to diversify. Try to diversify maybe in terms of the credit classes a little bit, in terms of the types of users you're investing in, and yeah, just keep coming back to the platform and seeing the new loans that are coming up and trying to get maybe 50, maybe 100 or more different investments. Obviously, you can't do that in one day, but we do have about 200 listings open at any given point. Yeah, so try to diversify, and then there's a very high chance that you'll be doing pretty good returns with BCGM.
Now, Flavia, you mentioned diversifying across the rating types. One of the strategies.
Yeah, I mean this is. Sorry for interrupting you. Say again.
So one of the strategies I've been using is I use this A filter tab, and I look for loans that have a high expected APR.
Yeah, the way that I'm investing is exactly that. So I usually go for a this is my personal style and is not in any way endorsed by BCGM or even proven that it's working the best that it could. But what I personally like to do is I select A, Bs, and Cs, and then I order by expected APR. And those are the ones that I most like to invest in. So those are going to be the ones that are going to have, on average, predicted by the system, should have the highest kind of return. So Cs, you're definitely going to, especially if you're investing in Cs, I would especially more recommend diversifying, because there's definitely going to be more defaults in Cs than in As. But also, as you can see here, the APRs that people are paying are pretty high. So if you're thinking, okay, how on earth is it possible that a person is paying 25% a month APR? This particular example strikes me as particularly high. But you have to remember, if your alternative is in Brazil, if your alternative is 200% per year or something, then suddenly paying 10% a month, 5 or 6% a month is actually not that much, right? So some of the loans here do seem a little high. There's always people that are going to try to just offer a ridiculous rate, and maybe they should or should not get. I haven't looked at these particular loans. They do strike me as a little. That's another thing to watch out for. If you're seeing someone offering 34% a month interest, they've maybe not understood that this is a monthly or a yearly interest, which is kind of something that we have to fix. Or they're just trying to get a bunch of investors in and kind of run with the money. There's definitely people try to do that from time to time, so I would be a little bit wary of those people offering 34% a month. But if you go down here a little bit more, I'm pretty sure you're going to find some more legitimate. These strike me as more 3, 4, 5%. That seems a lot more reasonable, and those could be definitely some good investments.
Yeah, that's the thing I've been the most worried about on this system is I look at a loan like this and it seems like it's somebody borrowing $20,000 at 25% for 30 days, and
yeah,
and you're right, it seems crazy to me. I do have trouble with that perspective since I am in the U.S. I think the highest interest rate I've ever paid is 7%, and I think my last one was at like 3% per year.
Right.
So
right.
It's hard to for me to trust them, I guess.
Sure. No, and absolutely. Again, there's like we are right now. We came kind of with this Bitcoin. This libertarian. We're all libertarians, and we wanted to kind of have this open platform where people can kind of post whatever they want, and then the market decides what gets funded or not. So that's why we at this moment still kind of let we don't do too much of curation at this point, so people kind of post what they want. But it's probably something that we're going to change midterm. Is we're going to do a little bit more curation because we want to reduce a little bit the noise on the platform and kind of also help investors, stay away from, especially people that are making their first couple of investments, kind of staying away from things that are probably not going to be very good investments, right? So as in everything, as in every investment, I think it makes apply common sense, and then I think there's a lot of good investments on this platform, but as everywhere, there's always going to be a few bad apples, and you definitely want to watch out for those. And you can also, there's a commenting function on BTCGM. Maybe you can show that real quick if you.
A what?
Go into one of the loans. It doesn't matter which one. You can scroll down a little bit, and then you see here the people who have invested, and then a little bit further down, there's people having kind of a discussion, back and forth, right? So you can kind of ask, so it seems here one user is warning them that this person already has loans overdue. So before investing, it might make sense to kind of read through the comments, and over time you'll see some people have very good track records of investing. For example, I think this guy called Swiss Mike has a pretty good return. Kind of watching what he says might be something that over time becomes useful, and you can, again, you have to, choose who to trust. But there are people here that spend a lot of time on the platform and make absolutely fantastic results. They show up on the leaderboard, and if you kind of follow those people, there's a good likelihood that, your returns are gonna maybe mirror what they're doing, right? And we're gonna launch so you can already follow people, and you can see kind of every investment they're making. So that's one interesting way for you to kind of mirror that. We're gonna launch probably a future soon where you can copy an investor. So I can say, I like this guy Swiss Mike. I just every time he makes an investment, I want to follow, automatically make a small investment as well, right?
That's pretty interesting. I think like AngelList has that type of feature, right?
Exactly. They have the syndicate feature, so you can say, I really like the angel investment that David's doing, and then every deal that you make, I'm automatically part of the deal. So it's going to be similar to that. So the people that get really good at investing on BTCGM are going to be able to build up kind of a following, and they're going to be able to have the people follow them and invest in whatever they invest. So that should be pretty interesting. Not sure when that feature is going to come, but it should come out soon.
Yeah, so one of the features here you're talking about that Swiss Mike pointed out all the other loans were overdue. So over here you can see this person has 7.63 Bitcoins in active loans, and
right.
they've repaid 0.
Right.
That was interesting. That this one's. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So this person is probably As you see, they're offering a crazy rate. They haven't paid back their previous loans. You can actually see more information if you click on the username here on the avatar. You can actually see the history of the person. So they've taken out looks like a bunch of loans here, 2 loans total so far that are overdue, and now they're trying to raise money for a third one. You can kind of see. Amount, they have more than 2 Bitcoins outstanding, and they're trying to raise more. So, this is the original. No, they have a lot more outstanding. But the original amount, the principal that I took was 1 Bitcoin each. That's an obvious red flag. That person's probably shouldn't be funded, and it's most probably not going to be funded. So.
Yeah, actually, I'm surprised on these rep loans. I've seen these a few times, and I think I might even have invested in 1 or 2. It seems like it's a way for people to build up their credit score to get bigger loans.
Yeah, we've been trying to kind of get away from those because they don't really represent real behavior, right? It's more of a way for people to, as you said, build up reputation.
Yeah, it seems like they're paying for a higher credit score, essentially.
Yeah, in a way, they're paying for a higher credit score. They're paying. It's good for investors because they can usually make money with the rep loans, but it's not really the real. It's not the real purpose. So I would be very wary of someone who does a lot of rep loans on average. And it doesn't mean, doing rep loans doesn't mean that the person's a bad borrower, but I'm just saying that the scammers and the good people can both do rep loans, and so whether they pay back the rep loans or not doesn't necessarily indicate whether they're going to pay back the money when they take their real loan out, right? What they actually need the money for. So I would not necessarily, again, as an investor, it may be. I don't want to say. I mean, it may be good or not, but I would be wary of someone who, if you look at their history and all they've done is pay, reputation loans, I wouldn't factor that in either positively or negatively to make your investment decision, right? Because it doesn't really indicate anything.
Yeah, it seems like it's just a way to get their rating higher. So then when
Right.
you're doing the investments and doing the filtering, then they'll have maybe an A or a B instead of another score.
Yeah, I mean the rep loans. I mean, obviously, past repayment behavior has an influence on the credit score, but it's really only one of many factors. So at the beginning, it was easier to kind of there were many more rep loans in the beginning, and it was easier to get your score up just by repaying a few rep loans. It's gotten a lot harder now, and we sometimes actually even penalize people for doing two. You know, if we see them just doing rep loans, they may get a penalty because if the behavior that they're doing matches behavior that other scammers have been doing in the past, then they may get a penalty, right? So we don't necessarily and we definitely don't endorse rep loans, and we're probably going to be at a point soon where we completely remove them from the platform.
That makes sense. What's a good process for finding a loan?
To invest in?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So one, everybody has their own style. As I said, I think in general thing to what you want to watch out for is you want to have an expected APR that's high, but at the same time you don't want it to be so high that there's no way that this person can actually pay this back. And then you want to read about kind of their description. What are they talking about? What are they going to use the loan for? Sometimes you see a person coming up with a story that you'll just by reading it you'll kind of guess that it doesn't sound that legitimate, and then that can be a red flag, or watching comments from other users, and then every now and then this person has verified everything, that has a great score, they have a story that makes sense, they want to invest in their home, they want to buy a car, they want to maybe buy a new miner, they have some kind of business that they want to expand, and if you think that the credit scoring and the expected APR is a good match, then you invest. And I think the nice thing about us is that there's absolutely no minimum. So it's not like Lending Club or some of these other traditional platforms where you have to invest at least $25 into a loan, and in order for you to diversify into 100 listings, that means you already have to put in $2,500. There's no minimum on BCGM, so you can literally start with $10 or $100 or whatever the amount that you're comfortable with, and you can invest 1 cent or $1 or $10 or $100 into each loan, how much you want. And so that's a great way to. I think it's a great way for investors to kind of get started, making their feet wet a little bit, seeing what the returns look like, the repayment rates look like, and then over time, it's going to be easy for them to increase the amount of money they're investing in. So that's something that I would recommend for anyone who's interested. You don't have to go all in on the first day. You can try even with a small amount of Bitcoin. You can go, and what I do recommend is that you spread it across, at least a dozen or more listings. Ideally, you try to get up to like 50 or 100. It's a little bit time consuming at the beginning, but we're adding more features to make that even easier over time too. And again, we have people that are doing fantastic returns on the platform. So.
Yeah, I agree with those points. See, I hopped in and I made 3 investments, and they were all, I think, 0.1 Bitcoin or less. This one's probably a weird number, probably just so I could make my account balance some even number.
Right.
I love that I could just try it out to see how the platform works, and I figured if I lost, I don't know what that number, maybe $10 or whatever, no big deal.
Right.
And I did notice to your point about the difficulty in finding loans. It seemed like the good loans, like the loans I wanted to get in, it seemed like those filled up really quickly, and so
Yeah.
it took me a few days to get these three loans. Maybe it was
Okay.
a few sessions over, I forget, 3 or 4 days. Maybe checking a couple times a day.
Definitely. Yeah, there's definitely like some people that are that have really good ratings and have a long history with the platform, and those people can borrow cheaply, and people trust them, and so some of the more desirable loans definitely get funded pretty quickly. So so what you can do today is you can, for example, you can follow certain borrowers if you're thinking, okay, this is a person I trust. There's a follow feature, so you can see here on the left, just to the left of your mouse. Yeah, you can say, okay, I want to follow this person, and then the next time they're going to publish a loan, you're going to receive an email immediately, so you can kind of invest in that person. And then also with the newsfeed that I mentioned, if you go back to the dashboard maybe real quick. Uh, oh wait, you're still
I think
seeing the
my
old
new
dashboard.
feed is
Let's try
off.
newsfeed exactly. All right. Stick in a second. Perfect. So here you're kind of seeing this is either people you're invested in or other investors that you're following, and you kind of have that newsfeed overview. So you're only following two people at this point, but you could definitely follow more, and then you'll see really quickly here. When an investor you trust makes an investment, that'll immediately appear in your newsfeed, and then so maybe that can be a way for you to get into some of those better loans before
Hmm.
they filled up.
Yeah, I
Another
was kind of,
feature yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
well, I was kind of surprised that there wasn't a an email alert where I could just say, I'm interested in like all A loans that have over, I don't know what APR, maybe 40% or something like that.
Right. Yeah, that's a feature that I've been wanting myself for a while, and it's just that we have so many things that we're developing, so we haven't been able to bring that in. But I'm sure that's going to help people as yourself and like me also to make more investment, because sometimes you don't have time to go every day and check the site 5 times a day. You just kind of want to receive an email when something happens. So
Yeah, and actually,
that's
we got a question from the audience along
yes.
those lines. They're wondering if there's a feature to set your account to automatically fund loans that meet certain criteria, or are
It,
there plans to add that in the future, similar to a
That's a great question, and yes, we've been wanting that very badly, and we think it's going to be. We know that, talking to people that work at Lending Club, we know that was a game changer for Lending Club. Like it made the returns better because it diversifies more. People had more time. Needed less time and everything. So absolutely, that feature is coming. Can't give you guys a date yet, but that'll be coming soon, and it'll be very important both for investors who will be able to diversify automatically without having to be on the platform. At the same time, borrowers will be able to get loans funded much faster than they are today. So we're believing that's going to be a win-win. It's going to increase the volume a lot and should also increase returns. So definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, that'll be good, and I'm sure I think that's a feature I'll use. Um, some of the investments I made, well, I got to walk through my investment process first. So I would go to invest, and then I would filter for A, and I can't remember the APR I was looking for, but I think it was high. Maybe I would have
Mm-hmm.
looked at this 37.2. I was looking for also ones that had low loan amounts because I figured
Right.
that those people were less likely to be scammers. I figured
Right.
someone less likely to scam for $500 than for this is like 7,000.
Right. 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 Right.
And then
Right.
I also wanted to avoid the Bitstamp USD for the most part because I'm long Bitcoin.
Right.
But those are the main things that I look for. And then after I got my investments, I noticed after they were funded, some of the ratings dropped,
Oh
which
yeah, that's a bug. I'm sorry to say that, and it should be. I don't know if it's has been fixed by now or not, but um, what happens is that the rating didn't really drop. I mean, what happened was that the user's credit score now is worse than before. Like once the person activates the loan, um,
because they have more outstanding.
yeah, because they have more outstanding. So if they try to take out another loan, which sometimes people have to because they have to refinance the first loan or whatever happens. But then they're definitely riskier, right? Because if they haven't paid back the first one, they're already looking for more money. So that's why the credit score of the borrower gets worse once they're an outstanding amount. But the original at the time you made the investment, the risk for that first loan is still the same. So it's not like the person suddenly got a lot worse than you invested. You still if you invested in A loan, that person is still an A for the time they started, right? And they still have the likelihood of an A person to repay. It's just that if they decided to take out a loan now, they would be a B or a C because the risk is higher now.
Yeah, that's what I figured was going on, and I think I looked when that happened through the people's profiles and was looking, did they all of a sudden, try to do a whole bunch of other loans? Because I figured it was either that or that just my loan to them had dropped that score, just like you said, because now they've got more debt outstanding.
Right, right. That's what happened basically, and we're fixing that so that the user will still have the worst score, but the listing, when you look at the listing, you'll see the original score that you invested in, so kind of yeah, minimize that confusion that we have.
One of the features that I was interested in but I haven't executed on is the idea of trading notes. So for those who aren't familiar, I made this loan to this guy and he's current on it, and so I can issue a sell order, and then he would owe his loan payments to somebody else instead of me is the
Right,
idea. And so
right,
actually the first loan I issued, I thought, well, I should put in a sell at some price, but then I never did it because it seemed like it was kind of complicated for me to figure out what was going to be profitable versus just letting it ride.
right. Yeah. So the secondary notes marketplace is I think it's a great feature. It's something that's a little bit underdeveloped from our side currently, because there's just so much going on that we haven't been able to pay enough attention to it. But it works in its essence, and the idea is that if in case you suddenly need the Bitcoin for some other purpose, you want kind of want to get out of there, there's a marketplace for you to do that, right? So sometimes it'll be you'll sell it at price. Sometimes you can make a small profit. Sometimes you'll make a small loss. It kind of depends on how the market is and what people think the note that you're selling is worth, because it shows the still outstanding amount, right? So you definitely want to sell it for less than the current outstanding amount because the person buying that is still taking on some kind of risk, right? So yeah, I would keep an eye on the platform. I think sometimes there's opportunities there to buy notes on the cheap as someone else is trying to get out of someone else is trying to get out of debt. Someone else is trying to get out of their investments, and they need to sell quickly. Same with the housing market, right? Like if someone is unfortunate and has to sell their house because they can't make payment, usually the houses are going for less than what their actual value would be, right? So that can be an opportunity as well for people who are looking for good deals. The secondary note marketplace could be a place. Just make sure to check the loan and see if the person already has. It says here in the payment status, is this a loan that's current, or is this a loan that's already late? And there are definitely also loans. So there's even notes here that haven't fully funded yet. So these are people that made an investment and then suddenly realized that they couldn't actually that they needed the money for something else. But the loan hasn't issued yet. But anyway, if you buy that note, also if in case the loan doesn't fund, the money will be returned to your account.
It looks like maybe this guy's trying to do what I was trying to do, where he's trying to flip the notes, maybe, where every loan he does, maybe he's just trying to sell it at a profit or something.
Yeah, so this I would not buy that loan because you can still invest in the listing at less than what he's selling the note for, right? So those loans are probably not going to be sold. He's trying to trick someone. It doesn't really make sense, right? But yeah.
I got an interesting question from the audience. He's wondering, are there plans to post loans from the supply side instead of listings coming from the demand side. For example, letting borrowers who have a high enough credit score see listings from loaners that are available to them immediately.
That's a great question. So just to get that straight, the idea would be kind of to say, okay, as an investor, I'm saying I have this much capital and I'm willing to invest it automatically in people that have certain credit scores that they fulfill, and then is that the
Yeah,
idea?
that was how I took it. Yeah.
Yeah, great, great. I mean, this for me sounds kind of similar to the automatic investments that we spoke about a little bit earlier, where you as an investor will pretty much be able to say, um, I'm willing to put, I don't know, 5 Bitcoin or 110 Bitcoin, however much you want, and to people that fulfill these criteria. They're either A or B, and their expected APR is 20% or more, right? And then every time a new listing comes on the platform that fulfills that, the Bitcoin will automatically be invested. So that, in a sense, represents what you just asked, and says that if the borrower has an A plus score and requests an amount that is less or equal to the amount of automatic investment capital that is being available to be deployed immediately, then that person could get the loan funded immediately, right? So that's something that is going to come soon, and then a lot of borrowers with good credit scores will be able to get credit immediately, which we think is going to be very interesting, both for investors and borrowers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. When I think about my loan process, personally, usually it's for like a car or a house, and so I use the platform very infrequently. But it seems like
Right.
there are people on BTC Jam that use it often.
Yes, there's people that are kind of really addicted to BTC Jam, so they they do all sorts of they do a lot of investments, they take out loans. There's people that are doing Bitcoin mining, definitely. Those are some of the people that kind of are very active with the platform. They buy a miner, sorry, they get a loan, they buy a miner, and they get the Bitcoin from the mining process, which usually in the first 2 or 3 months is when it's most profitable. They get the coins, they pay off their loan, and then there's a new mining machine that they buy. So they have this high kind of turnover with the place. And then there's other people who are building businesses who, need capital. They do import export or something. They get some capital. They buy some goods. They sell them at a profit on eBay or somewhere, and then they come in again, usually increasing a little bit the amount that they're raising, and they kind of expand their business through BTC Jam, and that's what we love to see those people doing that, because that's what BTC Jam has been built for, is for people to kind of not having to go to banks and having to talk to people and giving them a business plan, and the bank asking a lot of questions that probably don't even make sense for the business that they're running. We do credit scoring based on their again, social data, behavior data on the site, how they behave on the site. And then we allow them to post a listing, and then it's up to the marketplace, similar to Kickstarter or other platforms. The marketplace can decide whether they want to fund that individual or not. So I think it's a very powerful concept, and can help people who otherwise wouldn't get a credit to get a credit, right? So and then that's also, if some people in the audience think, okay, why these interest rates are really high? Yes, they are higher than what you can get, because if those people were in the U.S. and could get loans affordably in the U.S., they would not have a need for BTC Jam, right? So we're talking about people who don't have any other options, and for them these loans are very attractive. So that's yeah.
Thank you. I've got another question from the audience. What if a borrower defaults? Where is that noted?
Yes, that's a great question. There's an FAQ also. If people have some more detailed question, if you scroll to the bottom, there's some more answers there. And so what we have today is we partnered with a firm it's a law firm that has arbitration, what we call net arbitration. So it's a treaty from the UN from the 50s that's legally binding in 140 countries. And what happens is that if a person, in fact, becomes late, doesn't repay the loan for 120 days, then we go and that law firm will issue an arbitration award. So what happens is that the borrower's personal information, there's a contract being issued to both the borrower and all of his investors, and it includes the borrower's personal information. So it includes his name, his address, his phone number, his Facebook account, and so on and so forth. And that's been acting as a strong deterrent for people it's pretty scary to have all that information divulged to some of your investors. So that's one thing that happens. And then obviously with those award notes, investors can go and they can take the borrower to court. Right? It's a legally binding document that the borrowers signed already when he took out the loan. And we've seen then people, let's say you're in the U.S., but you're holding a arbitration notice from someone in Brazil. Okay, it might be kind of tough for you to go and enforce that. But what we've seen happening is that some other investor who's in Brazil, who's also invested in that loan, will offer to buy the notes, the defaulted kind of notes, on the secondary place, and then for him, then it makes sense, right? If he has, he's gonna buy them for cheap, right? I don't know, 10, 30, 40 cents on the dollar, but he can then go and take those notes and he can kind of bundle them in one and go to court. And for him, it actually makes sense to do that because the amount is large enough. It may be worth the time to do that. So, again, that's not something that is happening on a large scale yet. But our users we definitely have some pretty sophisticated users that have also been building. We have an API, so people have been building platforms on top of BTCGM. I can share one real quick here, maybe. That we've definitely seen a lot of people using. It's called BTCGM Top. Just go here. Maybe you can post a link to the group. Or you can. It's btcgmtop.com. That's the link at the bottom here. Alazybot. I don't know if you can see it. If you go down a little bit, the bottom one on your screen is the one that I'm talking about.
Oh wait, I think I see it now.
The btcgmtop.com. Yeah, or you just have an URL. Yeah, exactly. So I'm not super familiar with them, but they keep adding features and things. But they seem to have added some of the stuff that we are not displaying yet. That may be helpful for investors as well to kind of get a better sense. They display some more data. They kind of combine data from different parts of our website into one interface. So that may be something that people find helpful if they want to get a little bit more information on people and on the loans. Remind me, what was the original question?
They were wondering about defaults and where they were noticed.
Oh yeah. So exactly. So great. I think again, this is I kind of went over and said, okay, our users are pretty sophisticated. They're building these tools, and also we've seen someone building a collections firm to kind of buy and sell notes or buy notes from people and kind of go after them. So that's something that also we're gonna in the future definitely work with even more. Even though our repayment rates are already pretty good, of course, if we can increase them more, that's something that we want. So definitely, that's something that we're always looking to do, and we've been improving the payment rate like very consistently over the last 12 months, and I think that's going to happen. As we add more things, we're going to be able to do even more of that.
Yeah, and it looks like if you go to a user's profile, then there's their loans, and we can see here this one's overdue.
Right.
Along those lines, I got a question from the users. Does BTCGM report to credit agencies or just view user credit scores?
At this time, we don't report. The whole idea was that that we build on top of this new data, Facebook and LinkedIn and all that, because we're targeting people that don't have a credit score. They're living in a country where there is no credit scoring. I mean, we do have a lot of people from the U.S. And it works in the U.S. too, but at this time, and if you understand how the FICO score is calculated, it's actually kind of weird. And you can game the same way you can game it. You can game you can kind of game the FICO score as well.
Hmm.
People taking out. I mean, for example, when I moved to the U.S., I didn't have a credit score, even though I had built and sold a business before in Switzerland. I didn't need credit, but my credit score was very bad because I'd never had credit here. So I kind of needed to go and get a credit card, like a secured credit card, in a way that's similar to a rep loan, right? It's like a credit card that I don't even have access to the money and taken out, and they're just
Oh,
seeing if
wow.
they're seeing if I'm paying back every month, right? So I have to, for like 2 years. After like 2 years, they offered me. They saw that I was paying back every month, and they were like, "Okay, now you can kind of have an unsecured card." So they gave me back the $8,000 that I had to put down in the beginning. But yeah, but I'm just saying, like the FICO score, is also just another scoring mechanism, and it is not perfect, and so we don't rely on it. We think that what we do works pretty well, and we have so much data, so much more. We have so much more data than the FICO score has, that we think in the near to midterm future, maybe we can even develop a score that works better than the FICO score. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I know the FICO score is not not great. I've got another question from the user. What is the notational value per month that is borrowed and lent on the platform in dollar terms?
You mean, is he asking about the types of loans that are Bitcoin tied or dollar tied, or
I think he means total
so the total
USD
amount is
transaction.
about $1 million, as I said at the beginning.
That's a lot. Where was it like a year ago for perspective? Yeah.
Oh, it was, uh, I'm only with the company for 7 months, so I'm not even sure. I remember when I joined, it was less than $100,000 a month. So, yeah. So we've definitely, or sorry, is that true? Let me pull up the dashboard here real quick, and I'll actually verify. Um, Let me see here. Okay. So 1 year ago, I actually have the data here. Yeah, it was no, yeah, like 1 year ago, it was around 1 year ago, it was less than $100,000 a month. So we've gone kind of 10x um, on that growth. And in the beginning of the year, it was around like 300,000, and and in June we had over $1 million already. So yeah, we've been seeing some nice growth, and yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. It's good. When you do something, what we think is also is we're one of the only platforms or products right now that makes Bitcoin actually really useful. Right? Like there's a lot of people that kind of buy Bitcoin to speculate. Not to say that that's a bad thing. I have done that myself. But it doesn't really add to the usefulness of Bitcoin if the Bitcoin is just sitting on some kind of wallet and is not being used for anything, right? So BTC Jam gives value to the entire Bitcoin ecosystem because it allows people, real people, in Brazil, in Argentina, in Mexico, in Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and so forth, to get out of debt, to get out of crazy rates, or to expand their business. And through Bitcoin, and then the people can go to the local Coinbase version there, and they sell their Bitcoins, and they can expand their business. So we help real people, and we make Bitcoin useful. So that's we're very excited about Bitcoin, but we also understand that in order for Bitcoin to have value, it needs to be useful in the long term. So we think we're helping that a lot, and yeah.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. I've been thinking of useful things like change tip, but tipping people isn't anywhere in the same league as helping people in these other countries start businesses. That's a,
Right,
that's a really
right.
good point.
Right.
What does the process look like from the borrower's side? So if I'm in Argentina and I take out a one BTC loan, then I convert it to pesos typically.
Yeah, exactly. So we're exactly. So we're constantly adding new partners. We just launched a partnership with ANX, which is a Hong Kong-based exchange. Uh, there's a great win-win between us and the exchanges. The exchanges always look for more customers, for more liquidity in their on their exchange, and we have people that want or need to buy and sell Bitcoin. Whenever they're getting a loan, they need to sell Bitcoin to get whatever the euros or pesos, whatever that currency is, and when they want to pay back, they need to convert the other way around. So we have partnerships signed with exchange in Mexico, exchange in Brazil, exchange in Philippines, in Thailand, and a bunch of other places that are coming up. So if you're in Argentina, I'm actually not quite sure what the Argentinian exchange is that people use today. But for example, Brazil, there's a company called BitInvest. So if you're in Brazil, come to BCGM. We already have a Portuguese version. Decide, sign up, verify your identity, verify your Facebook profile, your LinkedIn profile, your phone number, your income, your address, and so on and so forth. Then you get a credit score. That credit score also determines which interest rates we recommend. And then you publish your listing. Hopefully you get funded pretty quickly. It depends on your loan amount and your credit score. But can happen within the first day of posting. Sometimes it takes 4, 5, 6, 7 days. Once the loan reaches at least 70% of the amount that you requested originally, you have the ability or the opportunity to activate that loan, which means you actually get access to the Bitcoin, and then you can transfer those out to anywhere you want. Most typically, that will be to one of our partner exchanges or to an exchange. You can also go to local Bitcoins, wherever's the most convenient for you, and then you'll sell your Bitcoin for pesos or reais or whatever the currency is that you're living in. And and then we have to repay. You have to think like maybe 2 or 3 days ahead of time to convert some of your pesos back to Bitcoin, and then sending the Bitcoin. The nice thing about Bitcoin is that it's very, very fast. So we wait for a few confirmations when you wire Bitcoins in. So within 30 minutes, if people are interested today, within 30 minutes they can be investing on BCGM, and the same as for borrowers. If they want to get the money out or get the money back in, it usually goes really, really fast. Definitely faster than most systems in the U.S. Are. So that's the process from the borrower. It's really not that complicated. The product has some things that we need to iron out to make it even easier. We're going to also be launching a mobile app that's going to make things a lot easier and more fun to use. And so there's a lot of things coming. We're working very, very hard to make the platform easier to use and more friendly, and to kind of guide people to diversify better and give them the right amount of information. And of course the credit score, which is kind of the core of what we're working on to improve that constantly.
Yeah, it's a very cool platform, and I'm glad I tried it out. I'm not seeing any more questions from the audience, so I think I'll go ahead and summarize my key takeaways, and then I will let Flavio have the last word before we say goodbye. So
Great, sounds great with me.
Okay, I think the key is to start slow. To start with maybe a few dollars. As Flavio said, you can start with a really low amount so you can get a feel for the platform, and I think it's important to start slow so you can get a feel for the types of loans that are out there and all the different features. I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that some loans are repaid in Bitcoins and some are repaid in dollars. So I think that's the most important thing that's not obvious when you're loaning to somebody. I think the credit score is obvious and the purpose is obvious, but I think the thing to think about is if you're making a Bitcoin loan, is this going to be repaid through a Bitcoin business or through a USD business? And then if that loan is out for 180 days or 365 days, how is that person going to repay? Depending on how that loan is denominated, because we don't know what the price of Bitcoin will be in that time frame. And then I think the last thing is to watch out for scams. because nobody wants to have a scam experience, and that's why I think it's important to start slow. So, if you do get scammed, it's only a few bucks and, not a few thousand. So I think those are my three key points. Start slow, pay attention to if it's a Bitcoin loan or a dollar loan, and watch for scams.
Cool, great, David. Yeah, I think those are three excellent points that I kind of really can would recommend anyone to follow. I would just a little bit further specifying when you say start slow. I also agree with that. I would still, and that's the nice thing about Bitcoin on our platform is that you can invest small amounts, but you can still diversify already, right? So I would in a time frame in an amount that's reasonable, but try to not put everything, even if it's just a few bucks. Don't put everything into just one loan. Try to go after 5 or 10 maybe from your first experience, and maybe you're going to have one default, or maybe not. But it's always better than to have one out of one default. So that's what I recommend definitely. And yeah, the other thing is always as always apply kind of common sense. As David said, look at the listing and say, okay, does what the description says kind of match the interest rates, and does it seem like this person is going to have a chance to make enough money in the time to pay back this loan or not, right? And that's very important. And then also I think what's already useful and becoming more useful every day is that social feed, where you can see what other people are talking about, and you can kind of learn also a little bit from the more veteran investors, and what they're investing in, and you'll see the questions. So pay attention to the comments also. People are sometimes ask really good questions to the borrowers, and then you can sometimes it's very apparent. You'll see some borrowers give really good answers, and they kind of have really thought this through, and they know exactly how and what they're going to do with the money and how they're going to pay back. And some people will kind of stall the answers and not give real answers, and that may also be a red flag for you to watch out for, right? And so if you're seeing a listing and you're not quite sure whether you want to invest or not yet, you always have the opportunity to follow that listing. There's a follow button on every listing, and what happens through the follow is you'll get an email when a person asks a comment to that loan, and then you'll also see that in your feed. So if you follow, here's a follow this listing exactly. If you click that button, it's kind of a try before you buy, if you will. It's like you'll get notified about comments, both from investors or also when the borrower, the candidate, kind of responds. So that can be a useful thing also when you're just starting out to kind of follow some listings and see what's going on there. And yeah, just the other thing is just try it out with again, if you go with small amounts, you have not too much to lose, and then try it out, and I really hope that you have a positive experience, and definitely if you have questions or something, I'd be definitely available to answer them. You could email me directly at flavio@btcjam.com, and you can post that in the chat before we close this. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe can some people? I can't see the comments, but can some people say if they're interested or if they still have concerns? Or I'd love to just see kind of what people thought of the webinar and what they think of BTC Jam currently.
If you guys want to put your feedback in, or would you say that their interest in the platform? If they plan.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's people can just say yes, I'm trying this out, or no, I think it's too risky, or this or that. I'd love to see that if it's possible for people to give a quick comment.
I think everybody's being shy.
Okay.
Let's see if we do a poll. We'll see if people do that.
I don't want to put anyone on the spot. It's more for me to see whether this or maybe they can say whether they thought the webinar was interesting. Great. This is great, this polling feature.
Oh, it's like 100% yes. Can you see it or no?
I'm still, I can't see the results. I'm just seeing the poll still. Oh, perfect. 100%. That's good. Great, great, great. Awesome. Yeah, I had a really good time. David, thanks a lot for putting this together. And yeah, if you have any other questions or people reach out to you, or I'd be happy to to continue the discussion offline. And yeah.
Awesome, Flavio. I appreciate it, and all the attendees. I appreciate your time. I know it's kind of late here in the Eastern time zone. We picked 8 o'clock, so it'd be hopefully work for everybody when they're off of work and can attend. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Flavio. I'm excited about the platform.
All right. Thanks, David. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.